Hello friends, myself Akhilesh. Welcome to my channel Study with me. Today we are discussing about two topics, transport of respiratory gases and chlorine shift. We can start with transport of respiratory gases. We know that when we respire, air enters into the lungs and the oxygen is transported into the cells by the blood. And the blood will return the lungs with carbon dioxide and released out. This is known as transport of respiratory gases. Since it is a cyclic process, it has two parts, that is oxygen transport and carbon dioxide transport. First we can discuss with oxygen transport. The transport of oxygen from the lungs to the cells is known as oxygen transport. We know that there is a proteinaceous substance in the RBC to transport the oxygen, which is known as hemoglobin. One hemoglobin can carry 4 molecules of oxygen. 100 ml of blood can carry 20 ml of oxygen. Oxygen is loosely attached with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. We know that the gas moves from higher pressure to the lower pressure. Since the atmospheric pressure is 760 mmHg and the alveolic pressure is 100 mmHg, the pressure is lower in alveolic pressure, so the oxygen enters the lungs. In the lungs, the alveolar pressure is higher than the blood pressure, so the oxygen combines with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. When the blood is fully loaded with oxygen, it is transported towards various tissues. Since the oxygen pressure is lower in the tissue cells, the oxygen will dissociate from the RBC and enter to the tissues. Next comes the carbon dioxide transport. The transport of carbon dioxide from the tissues to the lungs through the blood is known as carbon dioxide transport. Carbon dioxide is continuously produced in the cells. An adult produces 200 ml of carbon dioxide per minute. We know that carbon dioxide is toxic to the cells, so it must be released out. To eliminate it, the carbon dioxide is transported to the lungs by two ways, by plasma and by the RBC. 67% of the CO2 is transported to the plasma and 33% by the RBC. The carbon dioxide is transported in three forms. They are as carbonic acid, as carbamino compound, as bicarbonate. Most likely form is the bicarbonate. Most of the CO2 is transported as bicarbonates. The CO2 is combining with the water to form carbonic acid and is carried to the lungs. In the lungs, the reaction is reversed and the CO2 is released. As carbamino compound, only 10% of CO2 is involved in it. The CO2 will combine with the amino group of the plasma protein to form carbamino compound. It is transported to the lungs where the reaction is reversed and CO2 is released out. Most of the CO2 is transported as bicarbonates. About 85% of CO2 is transported as bicarbonates in the blood and plasma. In RBC, the carbon dioxide is combining with the hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin and transported to the lungs. Sometimes in RBC, the carbon dioxide is combining with the water to form carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is unstable in RBC, so they dissociate to form hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. This bicarbonate will reach the lungs and released out as carbon dioxide, while the hydrogen ion will remain in the RBC. When the oxyhemoglobin reaches the cells, the hydrogen ion will react with the oxyhemoglobin to form reduced hemoglobin and oxygen. The oxygen released out will enter the cells and this reduced hemoglobin and the bicarbonate will move towards the lungs and it is released out. Okay, don't get confused. I can repeat it again. The reduced hemoglobin which reaches to the lungs will react with the oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin, while the hydrogen ion is released and remain there. This oxyhemoglobin will reach to the tissues. Before the oxyhemoglobin reaching towards the tissues, the carbon dioxide will react with the water to form carbonic acid. The carbonic acid is dissociated to form bicarbonate and H plus ions. When the oxyhemoglobin is reached, this oxyhemoglobin will react with the H plus ion to form oxygen and a reduced hemoglobin. The oxygen will take up by the cells, and this reduced hemoglobin and the bicarbonate will move towards the lungs. Meanwhile, in the lungs, the bicarbonate and reduced hemoglobin reach towards the lungs. The bicarbonate will react with the H plus ions, which is reduced from the reduced hemoglobin, to form carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is dissociated from carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide is released out. And this whole total cyclic process is known as transport of respiratory gases. And next we can move to the chloride shift. Chloride shift is not a separate topic. It is coming within the transport of respiratory gases. We have studied in RBC CO2 combined with the water to form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is not stable in the RBC, so they dissociate to form hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. The bicarbonate form will leave the RBC and move to the plasma, while the hydrogen ion remain in the RBC. So the RBC is positively charged. To maintain the electrical neutrality, the chlorine ions in the plasma will move towards the RBC. This is called as chloride shift. And briefly, it is called as the diffusion of chloride ions into the RBC from plasma and back to the plasma. It increases the carbon dioxide capacity of the RBC. So that's it, friends. I think you all understood what is transport of respiratory gases and chloride shift. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe the channel and like the video. Thank you.